Stream is live.
We are live. Okay, give me a second here because I also got to get Instagram to go live. Come on, Instagram. Go live on Instagram. There we go. We are live and in person. Hello, gang from Save&Raid. How are you all doing?
Great. How are you,
Very
Erich?
well, thank you.
I'm stunning. I'm great. I'm here. I'm ready to talk about Diablo. And so here's a question. So if you live in Missouri, depending on what side of the Missouri River you live on, you either call it Missouri or Missouri. So with Diablo, depending on what part of the world are you in, is it Diablo or Diablo?
Well, now I'm more
Ooh.
curious if like the feminine Diablo is Diabla in Spanish.
Yes, it is.
It is it? Okay. All right. I did not know that.
So
Sorry,
I may have
completely sidetracked.
unintentionally opened up a can of worms. For that.
Yeah.
So we
We're
are
like-
here today to talk about 2025, and we're going to kind of start out this year. I think maybe what we'll do is rather than go into great details about how each of you got involved with Save&Raid, Maddie, I'm going to have you kind of introduce what Save&Raid is, and then we're going to have everybody go around and just introduce themselves, where they're from, and then we're going to jump into the conversation. So, Maddie, you're on deck.
Thank you. So Save&Raid is a multi-streamer relay marathon that takes course over a 60-hour weekend. I know that's longer than a weekend, and I don't know how to do math, but that's fine. Where we pick a game series each year, and we play through it in 1 hour increments between us and 60 other streamers, where we pass along the save file. So it's kind of a snowball effect with viewers. As we play the game, we take viewers from one channel to another, to another, to another, and so on, while passing along the save file. So it becomes an interesting experience for the viewers to watch different players play with different styles while completing the same game. And we do this, and we work with you raising money for Suicide Awareness Voices of Education. And that's basically it.
And where are you broadcasting from, Maddie?
I'm in Vancouver, Washington, up in the Pacific Northwest. So not the Canadian one. That's the other one in the Pacific Northwest.
All right. So we're going to kind of go around. I'm, for those of you who don't know me, I'm the CEO of Save, and I'm broadcasting from the comfort of my home office here in Woodbury, Minnesota, with a snoring dog at my feet. So if you hear that, it's not me, it's my dog. So with that, Tenderly, I'm going to throw it over to you to introduce yourself.
On Twitch, I'm Tenderly. Everybody else knows me as Sarah. I'm from Texas, in the northern section where, we actually normally get snow every year, and most people think Texans don't get snow. And I guess that's me. Is that all I was supposed to answer?
Brad, you're next.
I'm Steph Rad, Radgrid on Twitch, and I'm in Germany, Berlin, Germany. And yeah, I've been doing this with Save&Raid for, I think it's the 5th year that we're doing this, right?
Correct.
2001, 2002, 2003, last year ended. Okay, it's 5 years, yeah. So I'm really excited to play Diablo because I've never actually played Diablo 1 and 2. So yeah, that's me.
Bogle.
I'm next. I'm Bearded Bogle on Twitch, Stein in what I would, I guess, call a normal life. And I am broadcasting to you live from the Netherlands, a medium-sized city of Leiden. Yeah, and super excited to be here. Super excited to talk about Save&Raid. We've been doing this for 5 years now. It's kind of wild to think about.
Christina.
Hi, everybody. Christina, or Lady Gamega on Twitch. I am broadcasting from New York. And this is going to be one of my favorite years of Save&Raid because this is my much, much cherished favorite game series. So I expect a lot from you, Erich.
No. And on every measure, I'm going to disappoint you, I'm afraid.
Okay.
For reference sake, Erich is going to be kicking off the event like he did last year by being the first person to play it in the first hour.
So I am
Yeah.
focused completely on my first hour of this game. Trust me. So, all right, Seek, you're last but not least.
That's all right. So I'm known online as Seeky Wisdom. Everybody calls me Seek for short. My name is Alejandro, and I am from the California capital of Sacramento, which is not LA or San Francisco. For most people who don't live here, that's what they think it is. And I'm very happy to be part of this event every year running, especially this year, much like Lady Gamega. I'm a huge fan of this series, especially these entries.
Well, and Seek was kind enough to get it all set up for me so that I could.
I'm glad you're playing.
I am. You know, I bought this thing, which I got to tell you is just crap for me because, first of all, there's too many damn buttons, which makes it excruciating for me to figure it out. So I'm stuck with using my mouse and the button. So I'm going to keep using that. So
Agreed.
So,
You mean the correct way to play Diablo?
Yes.
Thank
Eric.
you. Go,
This
go.
just in the quad LAN at the watch party, the first 3 people will be playing on the big screen with a controller.
Well,
Alright.
I am thrilled to be here again, and I got to tell you, my team at Save and all of us could not be more excited for this year's event. 5 years of doing an event that you guys started with an idea and just continue to build it is really incredible and remarkable, and a testament to the hard work and passion of everybody who does this. And everybody who does this volunteers, right? This is not nobody getting paid here to do this. Really remarkable and truly a gift to our organization and our mission and the purpose behind it. And so, you know, we kind of come into 2025 in a world which feels, depending on where you live, could feel really unsettled in a lot of ways, right? And what I have always found incredible about this event is this connectedness that it brings to people who literally are from all over the world. It had been 4 years from the time this event was created last year, before the 2 people who were really responsible for making it happen, Bogle and Maddie, actually got to actually meet each other in person, right? And think about that, is that for 4 years, you built this event, never met each other in person, finally met each other in person, and decided to do it for a 5th year. So you guys kind of must have liked each other.
Well, I
Yeah,
mean, he's also not coming back this year, so
Yeah.
That is true. Maybe secretly that was the reason. Like, we'll do a 5th year as long as you don't show up.
So
But
let's
it was amazing last year. It was
let's
super
talk
fun.
about that issue of community and connectedness, because when, you know, we have heard time and time again that no matter where in the world you live, there's an epidemic of loneliness, right? There's this sense of isolation and being by yourself. And as you think about Save and Raid, and anybody can jump in on this, is how important is that notion of connectedness to one another as a part of this event?
I think it's hugely important. It's sort of woven throughout the event in multiple ways, not just, you know, being together and making a topic like suicide and suicide prevention approachable, and being able to talk about it, being able to make people aware of it, and helping out in one way or another, whether it's streaming or donating or spreading the word, but also sort of the other reason why this event exists, which is combining our communities, right? Like Twitch, streaming on Twitch can be if you choose for it to be, a fairly lonely experience where you're the one streaming to your community and that's it. But part of why this event exists is it makes us able to bring together all these different communities together, and being able to share them with other people, being able to meet other people. There are a number of people, you know, that I call now my friends that I wouldn't have known if it wasn't for Save and Raid. if it wasn't for streaming. And I think that's, there wouldn't be Save and Raid without this sort of togetherness and this community thing that you're essentially talking about.
Yeah, every year. I mean, even just the team here has grown a little bit every year as we've needed more roles filled in. But like, I've seen a lot of collaborations, seen a lot of people meet in real life that met during the event. It's I mean, most of us at this point.
Yep.
Which has been wonderful. But even outside of this, the core leadership group.
Yeah, and that extends beyond the event, like you said, right? Like there's multiple people that, as a consequence of the event, either through just meeting each other or having milestones and promise to do a certain thing because we raise an amount of money, they start streaming together, for instance, and they've met up, and that's just wonderful to see and always amazing for people to share those stories.
I feel like gaming inherently feels like it's this solo experience, you know, and a lot of us in these communities, we already have our own built-in social problems where we're typically people who don't do well in traditional social settings, and so in this setting we get to share something that we love, that other people like us love, and it brings us together. And then we start talking about things like the importance of mental health in, you know, our communities, and it really inspires people. They hear that message and they're like, I felt that, you know. And so it takes a lot of that isolation and loneliness that gamers like us tend to feel, and it gives them, you know, hope.
You know, I want to feed off of that just a little bit because, you know, there's definitely ways to play games with other people online. There are cooperative games, there are versus games, and you can definitely have a lot of human interaction. Most of the games that we pick for Save and Raid are single player experiences. Like these would be not necessarily Diablo, but in the past we've done games like Half-Life and Fallout 1 and 2, where it's, you know, it's a thing that you do by yourself, right? And we've found a way that is completely different than any other form of raid train on Twitch to make a collaborative teamwork effort out of a single player game where we all get to feel that community. We get to feel invested in the game that we're playing together. And especially in games where choices matter, you know, we get to carry those choices over from one person to another. And, you know, they get to sit with mistakes or bonuses occurred by previous streamers in the event.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I would say even like the parts where like they sit with those mistakes, it's always come out funny. Like we've always, you know, like when we did Legend of Grimrock and somebody like ate all the food, or they like threw bombs or whatever that they weren't supposed to. And like all of us just like really found it hysterical and like kind of just rallied around that. And we were like, hey, no problem that you ate all our food. We'll figure it out. Like, we'll move on.
Right. And that feeds into a lot. Sorry, Stan.
No. Go ahead.
That feeds into a lot of some of the background work that maybe most people don't realize happens. Like when we were playing Legend of Grimrock and somebody was like, I'm just going to keep eating all the snail meat in my inventory. And we're like, we're just sitting here being like, oh my God, we need that. We need that for like 3 hours from now. Like we're not going to be able to beat this game. So, you know, we're problem solving with like the next streamers down the line and being like, you need to go back to level 3 and farm snails. We need more snail meat. And sometimes it's just the dumbest, weirdest things, but there's always something going on in the background.
Yeah, definitely.
So is Stephanie still on here? Or we lose Stephanie? No.
Yes, here.
There you are, right there.
I'm here,
you know
yeah.
what? So you are in Berlin.
Correct.
Okay. So not that there's any particular reason why I mentioned that, other than yours comes from Berlin. So what's this experience like for you as a streamer, as a part of this community?
Well, my Save and Raid journey started with Bogle asking me. So he reached out to a streamer friend, and we met each other on Twitch playing Tomb Raider. So yeah, he reached out to a friend, which is basically also the community aspect of it. And yeah, I love that we have so many people from different countries, and I mean it's it's also not so easy, I mean, we have LGG as our perfect and best scheduler in the whole wide world, but we have slots for specific people to not have to, stream in the middle of the night. But we have an audience from different parts of all over the world. So yeah, it's just a big get together, and I don't know. Yeah, that's what I wanted to say.
I think we actually have the most countries represented this year out of all of our. I think it's over 11, over 10,
Makes sense,
maybe
yeah.
11 countries this year represented in our participating streamers. And I really like what you mentioned about year one, which was basically me, I think, contacting you.
Yeah.
Like, hey, this is a new thing. You want to maybe join that? I think Maddie can as well probably attest to that. That is basically how the first year was planned and scheduled, was basically just going around to friends and saying like, hey, I know this is weird and new, but could you please?
you know, we should go ahead.
Yeah, just continue.
I think it's been a year since we've told the story about how this idea came about, so probably should mention that this was an idea I had in the shower one day, and I'm like, wow, this is brilliant, everybody's gonna hate it. And I just started typing in Discord, and then a whole bunch of people were like, yeah, okay, all right, we'll try that.
That sounds cool. Yeah. And I mean, I think in year one, my wife still had her own 1 hour slot, but the years after that, we were like, let's make it more fun and more chaotic and just have you on with me and within 1 hour. So yeah, and my wife is American. So so there's another connection back to, on the other side of the world. So yeah, it's just.
Yeah, I love your co-streams.
Yeah.
Well, I have not been in Maddie's shower, but I've been in the room. I've been in the room where Maddie's shower was, and so I felt like
you didn't go stand in it to get some.
No, but I felt like I was in the midst of greatness, so I didn't want to wreck the vibe. So something I'm going to pull up. Somebody made a comment here. Let me find the comment, because I think it actually I thought was a really remarkable comment about this event. I can't find it right now, but it said it's the family reunion that you actually want.
Yes.
And I think that's a really powerful statement, because all of us have families of some kind, right? In some way, shape, or form. Sometimes you get to pick them. Sometimes you don't. So I think this idea that it's a kind of the family reunion that you actually want to go to, I think is a really important statement. So I'm always fascinated by the amount of just the work that goes into this thing on the back end of it. And then I will say that when I was at the event last year at your home, Maddie, just watching it kind of all come together. And when you're not involved in all those logistics and details, I will tell you, for me, that's great. And for all of you, you should be grateful for that too, because there wouldn't be a Save and Raid if I was responsible for the logistics of it. But one thing that I want to kind of chat a little bit about is if you had to quantify just how much time and effort goes into this thing, give somebody throw what does that look like from the time that you begin the planning to the time the actual game begins? Give me a somebody.
So we take about 1 month off a year.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, we actually
That's about right.
we take a break in the summer, but we start organizing the next event in the very end of August, September every year. And sometimes it doesn't feel like that's enough time. But
Didn't we start earlier this year because of that?
Yeah.
Yeah, and at the time when we start, it's not that much time that we have to put in yet, right? Like we have like a meeting maybe every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks, and there's some stuff that we plan and have to schedule. One of us, maybe two of us, do some stuff, and then the closer we get to this year's vote for this event, that sort of you're getting to sort of November when our Discord community gets to choose what game we're playing for the upcoming event. That requires some work. Our Yoshi, our designer who designs all our logos, definitely does the most work during this time. And then in December we have applications go live for participating streamers, so there's a lot of prepping with that, and then we sort of start working towards creating a schedule, and then starting in January, it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I was just gonna say, and like what we don't mention, and Apple mentioned in the chat, is like most of our meetings are like an average of 2 to 3 hours each time. So even though we're just saying like, oh, we had a meeting, like whatever, it's not like your typical like 30-minute business call. Like we're sitting here like hashing stuff out like 3 hours at a time.
And there is a lot to hash out in every meeting. Like they do tend to be pretty long meetings because, from December to November, we're figuring out what games will work. When we put them to a vote, they're completely tested. We figured out if we need to fix files in the game, if they're old and dilapidated, or how the save files will be transferred. So this is stuff we figure out really early before we even put it up to a vote, because God forbid we throw a game up, it gets voted in, and then like the day of it, we're like, oh, this won't work. Whoops.
Yeah.
But there's also, once the community starts to go active in November on the Discord, and we receive a lot of feedback on the fly, and these are all things that we do take very seriously. And behind in our basically our admin channel, we spend a lot of time discussing ways to proceed with various things that are brought up. And even this year, because we typically keep that just pretty close to the chest. Like it's a thing we discuss. We don't bother other people with it, or this year we started to actually publish our meeting notes in public on the Discord for anybody to see, which is something I'm kind of excited about, because it does highlight what we're doing in the background. Because it kind of seems sometimes the way people talk in the Discord that we aren't taking things seriously, like input from users, but like they are being discussed. And I think that's good that we have that transparency now, because I don't know, it adds to like the calmness leading up to the event, I would think.
Yeah, absolutely.
So part of the reason I asked that question is, again, what I want to kind of come back to is that this is clearly a labor of love for all of you, right? And I think there's probably all sorts of reasons behind that, right? Connection, the family that you want to hang out with, et cetera, et cetera. And I want to talk a little bit about how does the actual event actually work for those folks that may not be playing but want to watch it, and how they can do that. So I want to get to that in a second here. But what I want to first, though, is I want to ask Christina, why is this game your favorite game?
Honestly, I played this game when I was really, really young, probably when I shouldn't have. I was probably too young to play this game. But back then, parents kind of like didn't pay too much attention to stuff like that. But I really enjoyed the world building. This particular game series is very heavy in world and lore building. You kind of really like immerse yourself and almost feel like you are the character. the story building that they have done in this particular game series, like it's just way more involved and in depth. I mean, I literally just the other day was listening to an audiobook that they made off of, like a spin-off off of this game. So, you know, I enjoy games that are very story driven in this way. And I don't know, I also have this like weird affinity to like dark storylines, so that's just why I kind of really enjoy this game.
Nobody's judging you at all, Bob.
Maybe
Yeah.
your parents, though.
But what I want to know is that, so I have 3 boxes sitting on my table from Amazon because we're going to be doing a video shoot this week at our office as part of our promotion. And I got these. If those are like game appropriate.
Yes,
do those work?
absolutely.
I would say so, yeah.
So I'm going to wear these for a little bit, see if I can get comfortable with that.
Amazing.
So that was my setup for trying to figure out why you like Diablo. Now,
I love the commitment to the bit. I
No.
love it.
Yes.
Yeah.
so let's talk now a little bit about for folks maybe watching the social media piece of this thing and who haven't decided to leave because I put these wonderful horns on. How could people who are not actually playing get involved in this?
So viewing the event is probably one of the most important things besides, you know, donating to the cause that we're trying to highlight and support. Save&Raid.org, which I think just popped up below me, is the website with all of the information. That is the place where you'll be able to find out who's participating in the event. And after this weekend, the full schedule will be up. So you'll be able to see when your favorite or streamers are, or just a general, you know, if you're not following any streamers at this point, like just a general idea of when things happen during the event. Because it's definitely more than just the streamers. We're also doing some new things this year, which I assume we'll talk about here in a bit.
Yep. And so people who want to watch it, they go to saveandraid.org. They can view it. They can watch it, right? They can donate there. They can share that saveandraid.org link on their social media.
Mm-hmm.
And so this event starts. So remind us again when it starts. It starts at what time on what day?
11
LGG
a.m. 11 a.m. on February 21st, 11 a.m. Pacific time.
11 a.m. Pacific time on the 21st, right? And that's a Friday.
Yes.
Okay. So it's going to go for how long?
62 hours?
61-ish, 2-ish hours. So, so for those of you who are playing for your hour block time, who are watching this, you guys are amazing. Thank you for committing to this. For those of you who are going to watch it straight through, that's amazing. And for those of you who are going to be watching it and playing it, it's just, again, I got a different experience from this last year because I got to be in kind of the central brain center of, I said center twice now, in the same place. But that's going to saveandraid.org is really kind of where people want to go when they want to watch it. They can donate. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that's different this year is you all made a commitment last year that you wanted to add some additional content in addition to the game itself. And so why don't you guys talk a little bit about that? Because I'll say that's a piece that we're really excited about as well, is being able to add some more context to what this event is all about. One, it's obviously to raise awareness about suicide and suicide prevention. It's to talk about suicide and how we can all work together to prevent it. But it's also an opportunity to get access to information about resources and what people are out there doing in the real world to prevent suicide. So jump in and kind of share what we're doing this year different than we did last year.
Absolutely. So in previous years, I've just kind of had this thought that I wanted to do a roundtable discussion with different organizations during the event, because, you know, while this event supports suicide awareness, voices of education, you know, not the only game in town, and there's a lot of people doing really neat things that I think deserve to be highlighted. But also like having a discussion between them feels like a very powerful tool. So what we decided to do this year was organize 2 roundtable discussions, which will be in a format kind of like this, and they'll be spread out through the event. Actually, I think they're both on Saturday.
Yep.
LGG will probably have to throw the times at me. I forget. But the first one we're going to be doing is going to be in an earlier time zone so that we can get different organizations from around the world. And that's going to be like several countries. I think we had Canada, Netherlands, United States, and somebody else.
We're working on some more.
Yeah, working on some more. To discuss their 988-like programs, their suicide hotlines, and resources available in those countries, which has been a really important thing, because when we started doing this, like we acknowledged that, Save was an American organization, yet the event itself spread around the world. So I'm excited about this particular step because it brings in a lot more information for a lot of the populations that view or participate in it. The second roundtable, which is one that's really exciting to me, we've kind of dubbed like technology and new and unique concepts or ideas in the suicide prevention field. And we've got 2 of the guests that I'm really excited about are the Black Box Project from Stop Soldier Suicide, which is a forensic data mining organization that takes like voluntarily loaned devices of somebody that's passed from suicide and data mines their phones and laptops and other electronics to try to find patterns or things that lead up to it. And hopefully you spoke with them back in September when you were doing Suicide Prevention Awareness Week. And they were in the data mining phase still. They were still in the data collection. And I'm really hoping that, by the time we have them on, we'll start to see how the data is being used with that, because I think that's a really incredible new idea. The other one that was pretty cool, I believe it was called 1 Degree of Separation, is actually a group of comics, stand-up comedians that respectfully do skits about suicide, and then have a sit-down, heart-to-heart conversation with the other comics available and the audience. And I've been really excited to talk to them because that's a wild approach. And I think we can all agree that comedians, that's a hard life.
Yeah, I am very interested to hear that. That's for sure.
And the fact that they're bringing awareness within that group is huge. There is also a network of tattoo artists that have, and I don't know as much about this one. This is one that Jen Owens has wrangled into this one, that have created a network of, crisis intervention, mental health awareness between the tattoo artists and their clients. So I'm really excited about all of these, from the resources to the new ideas to the groups of people that are trying to work together in, a niche area to, just make things better for everybody, honestly.
It's such a cool thing to use Save and Raid to platform stuff like this, and like we've always had a time slot during the event to talk to Save, right? We talked to you and Jen, Erich, last year, and I think that is something that we will, most likely do every time.
Mm-hmm.
But to be able to go beyond that and have these, not just being able to showcase these things, but also have them talk to each other is super cool. And then being able to broadcast it on channels like Twitch, maybe something that they themselves had not considered before, is feels hugely important. And it's a great, I'm assuming, shower idea.
I think it was. I should mention that Jen Owens of Save and my wife, Like an Apple, are going to be hosting those roundtable discussions. So that's also very exciting and something new we're doing, which I think is the first time my wife has participated on camera in the event. I also wanted to point out the synergy of where Save is now. And I really enjoyed back in September when you guys did the conversations with all the different organizations. You had said to me at one point in a conversation off stream that like you said, you weren't the only game in town, and collaboration is really important to solving this problem of suicide. And I've really appreciated seeing how you've done that over the past 2 years since you joined Save.
Yeah, it's here. What I really like about this conversation that you're having this year is with folks that are out there pushing the envelope, right? Who are really leaning in. I'm going to just be very candid. I've now been in this space for about 2 years, and I've probably shared this with each of you or some of you individually and in different ways. But we're at a place where you've got to look at the data and you got to look at the numbers and you got to start asking really tough questions about what it is we're doing and is what we're doing working, what is working, what's not working, who's out there that need to be brought to the table here. Like any subject matter field, what happens is that oftentimes things can atrophy when it's the same people at the same table at the same event over and over and over again. And when I had the conversation folks with the Black Box Project and other groups that are out there kind of doing things differently, trying different things, taking some risks, it really sends an important message in the space that we're in, that we've got to be willing to look at different approaches here. If you look at the measure of success being numbers and statistics and percentages, I think it would be a fair thing for people to say, this organization, that organization's been doing this work for 25 years, 30 years, 35 years, and the numbers don't seem to be going in the right direction. Right? And I think that any field that you're in, you have to be willing to have people who are prepared to be disruptive, who are willing to challenge the status quo, be willing to say, you know what, we got to try some different things. And even at how we talk about suicide, even how we talk about means and methods of preventing it, right? It's really important that we bring other voices to the table here. And so that's part of what I'm excited about what you're doing this year, is bringing some of these other groups that are out there. Kevin Gold, I think it's Goldman, is a comedian. It's Gulman, who's been very open about his own struggles with mental health and challenges related to his mental health. And I think this idea of having comedians who are prepared to not only share their own mental health journey and struggle, but be able to talk about depression, talk about suicide from the stage, I think sends a really powerful message about how can we reduce stigma? How can we open up this conversation? And so, part of the reason I like Save&Raid so much is because people have these conversations every minute of every hour of this event, and being able to bring content in from folks that are approaching this challenge from a different perspective, I got to say, really lends even more substance and credibility to what you guys are doing.
Something else I wanted to bring up, because I'm going to use the word synergy again because it's fun, but so a lot of the things that you said really reflect the core values of why this event exists in the first place. Because Twitch can be a very competitive place. And like I think Tenderly said earlier, it can also be a lonely place, even with an audience. And this event, the idea that the problem I was trying to solve in the shower was, how do we work together to fix that? Not fix it for everybody, because, not everybody's going to be happy with any solution, but this event was created to bring us together, to work together, and to see each other as colleagues instead of competition, which is kind of the default feeling on Twitch, because I was seeing a lot of that, and it did not feel good. It's like Twitch can be a very hostile place if you're not in a supportive circle or community. And the way this event has grown, I've seen those values, whether people realize it or not, I have seen them fracture out into the larger Twitch community in a very meaningful and big way, which is, that we were talking about how much work this is. every time I see that, every second of work we do is worth it. And that's just the community part. That's just us learning to work together, and form this big family that supports each other every day outside of the event.
I also want to add that we're in a video game space, and a lot of that also borders on escapism, and we can't forget that it's still important to talk to each other and to lift each other up, and make suicide a topic, or mental health in general. Yeah. And that is not always the case in video game communities. So I think it's very important to bring that to the space.
Yeah. Well, and those of you who have been following the work that Say has been doing the last couple of years, particularly in the social media space, know that we've got a real interest in making sure that these online spaces, whether it's social media platforms or it's Twitch or gaming locations, remain safe and accessible to people on every ages. I've shared this story before about my dad stayed in touch with the world as a ham radio operator and using Morse code, and he would sit down in his basement for hours and hours and hours, and that's how he talked to the world, right? He couldn't see anybody's face. He could hear their voice on the ham radio, and using Morse code, you really had to work hard to kind of stay engaged in that conversation. And today's ham radio and Morse code is Twitch, it's Xbox, it's all of these streaming platforms where people are involved in things, and the need to make sure that everybody who's in these spaces is safe and healthy, or knows that if they're not feeling safe and they're not feeling healthy, that they've got the ability to reach out to somebody and ask for their help. And I think that's an important part of what we've got to continue to message throughout the entire event, in February, is that as people are playing, as people are watching, that this community is here for a really important purpose beyond raising money. It's here because it's a source of help and support. And so, we'll talk a lot during that 3 days or however many days it's going to be about taking care of yourself, and we'll make sure that people are aware of the different, crises lines and things like that. We also make our one step ahead suicide prevention training available for free for everybody, so that they can go online and take that, and they can share it out to their community. In fact, the more we can get that training out to people and get involved in learning how you have a conversation with someone about suicide and how you can help them, really, really important. And so let's talk a little bit about that notion of that community during those, I'm going to just say 3 days. During those 3 days, how important is it for everybody to understand that while we're participating, while we're involved in this is also an opportunity for people to both ask for help and to extend their hand to help others. So that was a question.
Yeah, that was a
yeah. I'm chewing it over a little bit.
Okay, you guys all suddenly were like going,
Start these beards.
I think it is. I mean, first we should acknowledge that nobody in the Save&Raid community participants or the staff are mental health professionals, and if we are, that's not our role here. Yep. But it is an opportunity for somebody to come in and be like, "Oh, I didn't realize there was resources out there," and to that extent, we've seen several years. We've seen people get kind of triggered by the content of conversation, but we've seen people also be kind of surprised that there were resources available in their area. one of the things that we implemented last year was an actual Save and Raid bot that basically sits in all the participants' channels for a month leading up to the event, and it does useful things like, say, a donation came in, so it helps the streamers during their hour, which can be a lot to take in. But it also sits there and provides links if it's needed, where we all know the commands, so we can queue up a little blurb and the phone number for 988. We've been using it to offer the one step ahead training that you guys offer for free now. And I think those things are really powerful during the event.
And I want to just add that, like, it started off where it's like us as the core team, like, kind of really knew what those commands were. And then the streamers who were participating knew what the commands were. But as time went on, you know, and someone had asked a question perhaps of like, where can I find these resources? Like, you just saw like random viewers like start to reply and adopt those commands and say like, okay, I can also help out with this. So like one person would ask like, where can I find this resource? And like 5 people would all reply and say like, here's the command. And thankfully we thought ahead for that, so it doesn't spam all the time. Yeah. But it was really encouraging to see that people who weren't even physically participating in this event were adopting, you know, the resource commands that we had put in place.
There absolutely is a viewer commitment to the event that is obvious every year. I mean, there are some people that try to stay awake for the entire event. They don't want to miss a thing, but we don't recommend that, by the way. That's not healthy.
No, it was borderline unhealthy. It was borderline unhealthy when the event was only 24 hours. But at this point, don't do that. Sleep is important.
And for me, you know, whereas we're talking about this as a 3-day thing, is that the community sees that for those 3 days, and then they go out and they continue taking that with them every day. You know, they learn that, oh, this is a place where I can talk about these things. Oh, these are people I can relate to, you know, and then, you know, maybe even likewise on a day that they're capable, they can be there for somebody else. You know, it's 3 days. But really, it's 365, you know.
Throughout the year, in between events, and I'm sure some of you also do, but I receive messages and PMs from people in the community that have either participated or just watched the event that just want to say how important it was. And sometimes people tell me that they used a resource, or they took the training, or they found a professional through one of the tools or resources you guys have had on your website. I appreciate that. I think that's awesome. But
I mean, I have people who come into my chat all the time. These guys here know I have a word that I use in my streaming called cuddle. It's not a physical cuddle. We call it a emotional support cuddle. And I have people who come into my chat all the time where they're having a rough day, and they come in and they just say, Tindy, I need a cuddle. And it's like, okay, here, let me take a moment and give you some extra support, you know. So and it's because of doing things like this that the community knows, you know, that they can come and talk to somebody, you know, which, like Maddie said, I mean, none of us are, you know, mental health professionals at all. So I mean, don't take that kind of advice from us, but we're people. And aside from the moment of crisis where you might really need that mental health professional, there's all the days before crisis, you know, and sometimes you need a friend to listen.
Yeah, I'm going to just go to your Twitch feed every day now and just.
well, don't come for the games, because unlike my compatriots here, who they're actually like real gamers, I pretend to play games. I actually just provide what everyone calls me as a vibe space. Everybody just comes and listens to the music, and we just try to talk each other up. We're getting through the workday together, guys.
All right, well, then I'm just going to show up there, and it's not on me at all. So
it's a good place to be.
Also worth noting that Tenderly and most of us are going to meet for the first time this year. She'll actually be here for the watch party.
She will. So that'll be great. I'm looking forward to that. I was sad to hear that Rad and Bogle aren't going to join us in person, but you know,
We will actually.
Next
We
We
year.
will.
can, yeah, I was gonna say.
I don't think we actually talked about that yet, but we
No, we
talked
haven't.
recently, and we will. The two of us, at least, will be in sort of a European.
We're
HQ.
abandoning you guys. We're opening our European
Well,
Save&Raid
why did you
headquarters.
you're now telling me this? I could have gone over to Europe.
Yeah, we could have all come there.
Oh, wait.
Okay, you know what?
I do not have the type of room that you are currently standing in, Maddie.
I'm gonna find a quick flight, and I'm gonna come over wherever that is. One comment, and then I want to have us chat a little bit about a concept called quick save, and then also talk about merchandise and things like that. A couple times folks have said that nobody on these conversations are mental health professionals, and while that may be true, what I want to emphasize is nobody has to be a mental health professional to be able to help prevent suicide.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
The whole point of this effort, the whole point of asking people to do one step ahead, whole point of talking about suicide is the idea that everybody, doesn't matter what your background or training is, everybody has the opportunity to save a life by learning those basic skills. You know, we talk about one step ahead as kind of a CPR, if you will, for suicide prevention. And so you really don't have to be an expert. You don't have to have a training in this space in order to know how to get people help, right? You could tell people that if they need help, or if they know somebody who needs help, you can call the crises hotline in your country, right? In the United States, it's 988, and you don't have to be the person in crises to call. If you know somebody who's having a crisis and you don't know how to help them and you want to help them, call, text, chat 988, right? That's what it's there for. And so each one of us can play a role in getting resources to people without having to be their therapist or the psychiatrist or the psychologist, right? That's the benefit of all of us having these conversations. Is what we could take away from it is we know how to at least steer you towards some basic resources that can help save a life. And if we're willing to have an actual conversation with somebody that we know about suicide, we can also know that if they tell us that they're thinking about it, we can play a role in helping to save their life. So with that, Maddie, I want to have you chat a little bit about this concept of quick save. And I know I'm kind of putting you on a spot here, but
I was not prepared for this at all. So here it goes. So last year when we were having our discussion with the roundtable with Save, with Erich and Jen, we talked a lot about the Green Bandana Project, which is something that you guys brought on or adopted and made part of Save in previous years. But it's a program where there is a lead in the schools that basically recruits people in the school to be a safe person to talk to, somebody that in a crisis has a green bandana tied to their backpack. Everybody in the school knows what that means. And if they're going through something at home, if they're thinking about suicide, if they're just not doing okay, they know that they can talk to that person. And, you know, like we talked about earlier, not a mental health professional, not their job, but they can help them find resources, which, you know, for the schools is usually with the school or maybe something out in the community. And I'm gonna back up a little bit because it's really important what you said, that it doesn't matter if we're mental health professionals, the difference that we can make is massive. There is a fear. There is a fear in the streaming community and probably other places as well. But our liability as streamers is not necessarily spelled out. It all relies on our individual comfort levels and advice from other streamers who may not share our same values, which is a bit of a problem. So, you know, there is that disclaimer of like, I'm not a mental health professional. It's not my role here, but I'm happy to listen. I'm happy to help you find resources. And that's one of the stigmas, right? Like that's one of the things that we'd like to get rid of. So we started to think about adapting the Green Bandana Project to the streaming space and further out into the gaming space. But right now we're looking at stream communities, specifically on Discord, and utilizing streamers and their moderators and basically anybody in the community that wanted to be a part of this to be a safe person like the people that are in Green Bandana Project. So kind of a rundown of what that would involve was these would be people in the community that are just, they're not going out and finding a person in crisis, but they're there if a person in crisis needs to talk. And we're working on a way to be able to identify them because, a green bandana is obviously not going to be visible in a chat room. So we're working on ways to make them identifiable while also explaining who they are. Yeah. And they'll be there to be a calm person for somebody in crisis, to help them find resources, hopefully local. There's some really great tools out there. Twitch just posted some that we've been considering using if we don't use something else, that has basically like a zip code search to find stuff. And that's great. That tool's great. But if nobody knows it's there and nobody's pointing at it, it doesn't do a lot of good. So the things that we're working on developing right now are, basically a pledge to take this seriously and be that person. But also training. It'll probably be similar to One Step Ahead, maybe a little bit more in depth. I think it actually has to be more in depth. So one of the things that we did in the last couple months is we did a needs assessment in the community, which kind of took us all by surprise. Something that me and my wife, who's helping me, she's co-developing this project with me. It kind of took us by surprise how far it went and how many people actually respond to it. Because I don't know if any of you have ever done a needs assessment. Usually it's not a lot. It's not a lot. Like we broke 100 people that responded to it and got a lot of very interesting feedback. Some of the things in there was asking what people do in their own communities for mental health. And people talked about mental health channels or health channels or vent channels, which, we all have our own feelings on vent channels. So as part of this project, one of the things that we'd like to do is write suggested best practices for vent channels to keep them healthy, possibly while having somebody that has volunteered to be part of Quick Save in the Discord to help with things like that. Because that takes pressure off the streamer. Like being a streamer is already 30 jobs that you're doing. And it is work. And we have these volunteers called moderators that, are there watching the community. They're watching for bad actors. They're watching for opportunities for the streamers and just generally being our best friends and support, which is very valuable. But I feel strongly that moderators would fit this role well. Not only them, but they would fit it well. And so, like I said, best practices for vent channels. But one of the other things that I saw a lot in the data we got and the write-ins that people had was fear of trauma dumping. It's a big problem in online communities, and if you don't know what trauma dumping, I'll try to explain it as quickly as, somebody's like, hey, I need to talk. And then they tell you everything they've gone through, which is a lot for another person to sit with that kind of trauma, depending on what it is. And it can open the door to far longer conversations to the point where it can become dangerous to the mental health of the person that's listening. And this is something that we've all seen happen as streamers, through our relationships, friendships, or maybe even parasocial relationships. And it's a worry. And it's something that I fear would keep people away from a project like this, because there is that worry for their mental health. There is that worry for any kind of liability, whether that's real or not. And I think that one of the big parts of this on being a quick save person would be how to redirect and mitigate with trauma dumping, explaining their role concisely to the person that has come to them for help. And I think that's something that we can do very well, kind of universally. That will help this spread a lot farther than it would have
So we're working with you and your bride on this, and so we're looking forward to continuing to talk about this, and I'm excited to see where this goes, and we'll chat about it more when Jen and I are out there with you and Like an Apple and talk about kind of what's next. And I know that we're reviewing some documents that you sent to us last week, and so I'm excited about where this can go, and I know that our team is excited about it. And there's more to follow. There'll be more to update you all on that concept and that idea. But before we roll out of here, who needs to talk about merch?
I just want to say real quick that it's truly a pleasure to get to work with you guys on this. Thank you.
Well, thank you. We're excited to do that. All right.
I think I tell this story every. I think I tell this story every year that in the beginning we weren't entirely sure if this sort of the raising money part of Save and Raid was going to be like the same cause every year, but like from day one of year one, I think, and going forward, you know, the fact that our relationship has grown and the fact that Save and Raid fits so well with what Save is doing is at this point we're linked, and it's always been a pleasure.
Yeah, no, this is, I think I shared with you guys, you know, one of the first things that when I came into this role and looked at this event and had a chance to chat with you guys, you know, I told our team, I said, this is something we need to continue to invest in, to work with, and help to amplify it and continue to build it. And so, and how else do I get to learn how to play games that my kids wouldn't let me play with them when they were kids? So
that's true.
There you have it, right?
Now I get now, right?
Well, that's that whole new family thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I like my family, but I like this family. So I put the website up that's got the link to the merch, but does anybody want to speak about the merch? I had nothing. Somebody said that the merch selection is awesome.
It is
I had
fabulous.
nothing to do with it, but
the logo this year is so good. I love it.
Yeah. So we have merch year round, which is, you know, our purple and teal, you know, the suicide prevention colors. You know, it's just arms and a heart that we sell. But every year we make event specific merch, and you can see it in some of the logos in the shirt Bogle just held up that we sell. This year we're offering more options than we ever have. Usually it's like a t-shirt, a pendant, maybe a mouse pad. Kind of excited. I'm really excited about the merch.
Isn't there like a mouse pad that's like life size?
Yeah. It's buried under something, or I go get it. But we're offering a much larger variety of clothing. It's not just the t-shirts. Like, we have everything from leggings, sports bras on up to full sweaters and hoodies. But we also have fun little knickknacks. Like, we're on our 5th year, and just the supplier that we're using for this, which is, you know, print to order, because that's easier for us. But we actually have a collection of buttons where they force you to like make 5 different designs on the buttons, and I'm like, wow, we have logos from the last 5 years. So we've got these little buttons about this big that have all of the Save and Raid logos from each year. There you go. There's year 1. But yeah.
What are you showing there, Rad? I can't quite tell.
That's the shirt.
Yeah, that's the year 1 logo.
When we played Doom.
From the
when it was just 22 of us. But there's a lot of merch, and you can find the merch if you go to saveandraid.org. A selection of it is available on that page, on the merch page on the website. But there's also a link that goes to the main store, which has a lot more items. I didn't want to flood it too much, but.
And a reminder that, or I shouldn't even say a reminder. I think Margaret from my office has either tomorrow or Tuesday. We're all getting around and stuffing player shirts and starting to send them out. So folks,
that is
getting
very awesome.
Their player shirts here in the next week or two, depending on what part of the world you're in. So
this is something that Save put the money in to make sure everybody participating in the event gets a shirt to wear while they're streaming it, which is awesome. Thank you for doing that again.
Well, we're happy to do it. And Margaret was delighted to be able to pull that together again. And she's now got a system set up and When you receive your shirt, know that it was packed with love and care by all of our hands.
Are you wearing the horns while you do it? I feel like you should.
You know what? I think I will. And then, like I said, I've got 3 boxes of stuff, some of which I'm pretty sure doesn't really fit the theme of Diablo, but you guys will have to tell me.
I really want to know how your dog's going to react to the horns.
Well, she did not care much for the hazmat suit last year. But I will tell you, doing the shtick for Half-Life was a lot easier, just in terms of kind of costuming. I've had to really bend over backwards to come up with what I think works for Diablo. So I'm hoping that these did okay in terms of the horns.
They are very much.
All right, so we'll see.
If it helps, we can send you the official Save&Raid booty shorts and sports bra.
One last thing we shouldn't forget about the merch is that, like, we try and keep the costs on these down for people so that they can get their hands on the logo and on the merch. But any proceeds, any profit that we get from the sale of this goes directly into the campaign for the event.
Every item is $5 donated. Just universally.
Oh, that's great. Awesome.
Fabulous. So I don't know how exactly to pronounce Shimizu, so I'm going to call it Shimizu says now how to safely set those horns on fire, which I think is probably a good place for us to wrap this up.
That is actually
out of hand.
I will say that is Yoshimitsu who designs our logo.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Yoshimitsu wants me to come up with a safe way to set these on fire, so I'm going to go off camera and see if there's an opportunity to do that and still participate. Any last words anybody wants to share? See, go ahead. You got your hand up.
Before we wrap up, there is a huge vote coming. So,
yes,
one of our incentives before the actual charity event begins, you have a deadline from now until a week before the event to vote for which classes we pick. So you remember, Erich, when you started the game, I said you can pick from one of these 3 classes, and I give you a very basic rundown. So now the audience, the participants, anybody watching, anybody who wants to, can go to saveandraid.org, right? Mm-hmm. That will take us to the place where you can do the donations. And
there's a big button at the top right of the site that says donate and pick class, I think is what it says.
And so for both games, Diablo 1 and Diablo 2, you can pick the class by making a donation. That will give you a vote. We're going to tally all the votes, and that will basically guide the course of the event. So if you want to have an influence in the event before it starts, go over to saveandraid.now.
The minimum per vote is $1.
Correct.
Yeah, exactly.
The minimum donation per vote, yes.
Yeah.
So please go.
Please go do that. Go buy merch. Make sure you show up over at Tenderly's Twitch and ask for cuddle.
Ask for cuddles.
Cuddle.
And it is a delight to be with all of you. And I'm looking forward to seeing many of you in Maddie's garage here and not too long from here. In the meantime, everybody who's watching today, everybody who's going to participate, thank you for doing that. Don't hesitate to reach out if you need some help, if you need some support, or you need some resources. That's what we're here for. On behalf of all of us at Save, my staff, board of directors, and everybody, thank all of you who are on this stream here today for being a part of this conversation. And I know that we're going to have another live stream coming up. I think we're going to have 2 more.
This one's exciting. This is really exciting because this is the first time we've been able to do this.
The second one that's coming up is we're going to be playing the game Raft.
Mm-hmm. Yes, right? we're all gonna see how well you do in a multiplayer game setting.
In a raft.
Not just that is he's a professional rafter, so he's gonna carry us.
Yeah, I was gonna say we're gonna learn from him. So next week, the time of that is in the most recent news post on the website. But if I remember correctly, it is. I'm not remembering. I'm just reading it.
1 p.m. Pacific, I think.
1 p.m. Pacific on Sunday, February 2. And then for the Europeans, it's 10 p.m. in the evening. yeah, we're going to play with a bunch of us from the organizing team and Erich for sure. We're going to play Raft and we're going to survive and do very well.
And I will.
It'll actually be broadcast on my channel. So
on
Twitch.tv already have it.
Twitch. I will introduce to you many of the unique swearing word combinations I created when I went down the river on my raft. So be prepared.
Can you add shark to the end of all of them?
Flying fish, not shark, flying fish. And then we're going to have one more live stream with about players.
We'll announce the exact date and time for that pretty soon, but we'll have a stream similar to this one, but we're going to talk to a bunch of participating streamers who aren't necessarily a part of the organizing team, but are participating this year. So we'll get to hear their perspective on Save and Raid.
Fantastic. Folks, I love you all. Take care of yourselves.
Thank
you so much. Be safe.
Thank you, Erich.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.